Hi, I'm Gracie Mercedes, and welcome back to Not Blank Enough, a podcast about everyday insecurities and triumphs. In this episode, I'm talking with Dave Holmes, a former MTV VJ, editor-at-large for Esquire, and author, talks about what it's like to grow up gay in a conservative town. I hope you enjoy our conversation that we titled, Not Male Enough. We're gonna do this.
Gonna do this.
Dave Holmes.
Gracie Mercedes.
Thank you for being here.
A pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
So the show is called Not Blank Enough. And so I've been talking to guests about insecurities throughout their lives, or even currently that they have, that they either overcame or maybe didn't and still have those issues, or whatever the case may be. Some people we've talked about not feeling good enough, not feeling pretty enough, not feeling light enough. And so I want to dive deep into Dave Holmes and what he is feeling not enough of.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think probably the essential tension of my life comes from not feeling male enough. That's not the right word. I feel male. I'm confident in my gender. But I grew up in a very conservative place at a very conservative time. And there were and continue to be things that boys are supposed to do and act like and react to and all of that. And I didn't do enough of that. I didn't naturally take to that kind of thing. And I sensed at a very early age that was something that caused anxiousness.
In you or in other people or both?
Both. And the anxiety of other people reflected itself back to me because, I'm a people pleaser and I want to make people happy. And so I spent a lot of my life in my formative years and after doing a thing where in each new social situation being what does this person expect me to be? And I'm going to based on nonverbal cues, I'm going to try to play the part that I think I'm supposed to play in this interaction rather than just being myself. My friend Dave, do you know David Russell?
Mm-mm. I don't think so.
He's Sia's manager.
Okay.
And he's brilliant. And he posted a thing in the wake of Larry Kramer's death. Larry Kramer died this week. And he posted a picture of himself from when he was 7 years old, just standing with his hand on his hip and looking so happy. And he said, this is me at 7 standing with my hand on my hip. I came out of the closet at age 15, which is still very early. He's 40, I think now, which is so to come out at 15 is brave. But he said for those 8 years in between, all I tried to do was to be the kind of person who doesn't stand with his hand on his hip. And I was just oh, that hit me so strongly because I totally relate to that thing of just I have some tendencies and some interests that are not traditionally male. And who gives a shit? Ultimately now I'm in a world where those things are celebrated.
Right.
I found my place in the world and that's great. But I still find it difficult to relax naturally into those things. Because
it's so ingrained in you probably as a child.
It's so ingrained in me. And most of my family is still in the place where I grew up, in the neighborhood where I grew up, going to the same schools that we all went to. And it is crazy how little has changed. Gay is still the go-to pejorative for when a boy is doing anything outside of the very narrow things that he is allowed to do. There's still that tension about projecting this maleness. And it truly is as though nothing changed since the time I was a freshman in high school.
Oof.
And it's crazy.
It is crazy. By the way, I just want to quickly mention your book, Party of One, because...
Oh, I go deep into a lot of this stuff.
Yes, you do. And I love it. And I feel like everyone should go read it.
Thank you.
Dave, out of all the people I know in the world, I know a lot of people, Dave. You are by far the best storyteller that exists on this planet.
Oh, thank you.
And it's so evident in your book, the stories you tell and the things that happen to you are just insane to me. It's almost like the universe knows you're such a good storyteller, so the universe gives you these stories to tell. If that makes sense.
Thanks. Yeah, it really feels that way sometimes because I do. There's nothing I love more than a good story, hearing one, telling one, living one. It's my favorite thing in the world. I do think that there is something to The Secret. Like you live your life in a certain way and things happen to you.
Right. You're attracting the stories.
Yeah. And that's one of the many things that is driving me crazy about being stuck at home. There's only so much that I can do and so many ways that I can interact with people. We're doing what we can, but it's hard.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little more about your family, because you did say, okay, so it was a conservative town.
Yeah.
How old were you when you came out?
Well, I mean, to my family, I guess I was 22, but like I knew from when I was, 7, probably. I think a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that's a thing that I think straight people resist, is the idea that you can know you're queer from a really early age. And I think the tension around it comes from the idea that to identify as queer at a young age is like sexualizing yourself too early.
Mm.
But I don't really think that's true. When like a little baby boy stares at a woman, you're always like, he's flirting with you.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, when you go to the 7th grade dance and you ask a member of the opposite sex.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. It's funny you said that because I think we do it all the time. Heterosexually, we always say that.
Right.
Oh, look, he has a little crush on her kind of thing when they're like 2 and no one has a problem with it.
No, and you're not talking about babies fucking. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's not what that is. It's just it's an innocent expression of sexuality, which, I think queerness can be revealed early and in a way that is just as innocent and non-sexual.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely in my case, it did. And so I started like telling friends in high school. I was really lucky in that I went to an all-boys school, which is a blessing and a curse. But also in my class, it was a very small school. There were like 50 boys in my class. And 5 or 6 of us are gay in adult life.
Oh, wow.
And like for the couple years ahead of us, 0 people. For the couple years after us, 0 people. But our class, for whatever reason, we got super lucky, and we had like a good half dozen gay boys in the school. That really helped. My closest friend is also gay, and our closest friend from high school is also gay, and we were able to sense that about each other early and sort of talk to each other about it early in a way that was really therapeutic. Although, of course, we said we were bisexual. And, luckily we were so close that we had no interest in one another physically. So that tension was taken out of the equation, which was really good. So we were able to sort of speak freely about that. But I still, even though I was out and the sexual part of it was pretty easy for me to deal with and understand and put in its correct place, the idea of being less than the ideal male or being perceived as less than the ideal male gave me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
That became my problem for like the next 10 years of my life, like trying to go down a path that would lead me toward a more traditional adult maleness.
And how does that manifest in an all-boys school? Because I feel like in a school with girls, there's that added pressure of who do you like, who are you asking out, who are you kissing? But if you're in an all-boys school, how does that play out?
I dated girls, and the cool thing about being a gay boy in an all-boys school is that you get invited to all of the dances because you will be a good date. You will dance the night away. You'll like make sure your date is having a good time. You will not trouble her for sex.
Wait, but so the girls knew you were gay and they were asking you on the...
No, I mean, not really. Like we might have all had a reputation for being a little light in the loafers or whatever, but we were a lot of fun. We were way more fun than the boys who were straight, than like the cool boys who were straight.
Which makes sense because you're not trying to impress the girls or anything like that. You can actually be yourself.
Yeah, totally. So that actually, like my high school experience, I mean, it was terrifying in a lot of ways, as most high school experiences are, but it was pretty good. And I felt like I had a part to play, and I felt needed, and I was socially active. I volunteered a lot. I started DJing at a radio station. I felt like I was putting together a life that was pretty good. And then later, this anxiety about trying to like grow up and be normal really manifested itself in college. I went off to a really conservative Catholic college. And I didn't have my clique
Your crew, yeah.
of gay boys. I was surrounded on all sides by like men and women like I had known growing up, but like more of them and like this New England version of them. It was really hard. And I responded to it by trying to change myself rather than trying to change my surroundings.
Interesting. So it sounds like when you were younger, you had a little bit of that feeling of not male enough or maybe not masculine enough. And then you found your crew of boys. And that was great. And then you go off to college and now it's almost like you're starting over again.
It's worse than that. It's like I regressed. It's like I matured backwards. And I remember trying so hard to cultivate an interest in basketball.
Were you good?
Oh, okay. Playing absolutely out of the question. Playing out of the question.
Oh, okay.
But but just having it would be on, like once I had an apartment off campus, I would have it on the TV. Couldn't name a single player. I had that poster of Michael Jordan where he's flying through the air and he's about to dunk a basketball.
Totally.
If one person had been like, name either of the two teams depicted in that poster, I'd be like, I gotta go.
Because this is like mid 90s, right?
This is 92, 93, yeah.
And that's like the height of Jordan. I mean, did you watch the Last Dance documentary on ESPN?
No, I didn't. Because I've made peace with the fact that I don't give a shit.
Right.
I missed The Last Dance completely. Oh, on basketball, my first job out of college, I worked in advertising and I for whatever reason, for a few months was in the sports advertising division of the firm that I worked at. And there was an industry-wide 3x3 basketball tournament.
Okay.
And I think even at my cubicle, I think even still then I was like trying to put like front like I was a boy. And so I had like a picture of some basketball player or whatever. And my boss was like, "Oh, the guy whose position you're in was our third in the 3x3 basketball tournament. Why don't you be our third?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally, I'll do that." I've never, except for when I had to in Catholic school, I have never dribbled a basketball. I've never shot a basketball. It's never been my idea to do any of these things. But I was like, yeah, no, you know what? I'm going to try it. How hard can it be? I'll do it. So I had a friend from college who was a pretty good basketball player, and he lived in New York. And I was like, okay, I've got a week to get ready for this tournament. Will you just like teach me, like, can we do some drills? Can you teach me some basics? And he was like, great, this will be fun. And so we went to some park along the East River and he like showed me a couple things and I like kind of dribbled and I did a few shots and we were like kind of playing just like a little one-on-one. And after about an hour, he stopped and he said, "Dave, you have to stop this entire tournament from happening. You can't just drop out. You have to like,
Never.
You need to burn the gym down so that you can't be anywhere near it because this is not for you." So we literally like, he's like, "I have like an ankle thing from an injury that I had in college. If you want to wear it to work for a few days and pretend that you're injured."
Did you do that?
I absolutely did that. I absolutely did that because it was my only way out. I was too far in to be like, "You guys, I actually literally don't know how to play basketball and I will embarrass you and get you eliminated immediately." So I just feigned an injury and didn't do the thing. Rather than just saying,
"I can't play basketball."
I don't play basketball. I can't play basketball. I'm not interested in playing basketball. That doesn't intersect with my lifestyle at all. Thank you for asking, but no. Like that was unconscionable to me.
Right.
In that situation, like, and it's shit like that I look back on and bring up with my therapist because it's like, why didn't I? I was 23 or whatever I was. Why was I not self-possessed enough to say that is not who I am?
Right. Because you felt like you had to do that to fit into this box of masculinity.
Yes. I felt like the problem was me.
Yeah, of course.
Or that there was a problem at all.
Right.
There's really not a problem. Like if somebody right now was like, "We're going to go to Color Me Mine or whatever." I could easily say like, "I'm not very good at that. No, thanks. I don't mind." That wouldn't bother me. But like the idea of not, it felt like a failure. And that's crazy.
Right. And that's like the theme that keeps coming up in these conversations I'm having with people. So much of our feelings of not enoughness come not within, but from outer sources saying, "Hey, you're supposed to be this.
Yeah.
You're supposed to look like this. You're supposed to act like this. You're supposed to be like this."
Yeah.
So interesting. That's such a great story and such a great representation of something that we see, like sports, basketball, like man stuff, and feeling like, oh, I have to do this to prove my manliness in a sense.
Yeah. Who cares? Who cares?
Who cares?
We came together again in the world of improv, which can itself be a very like boys club kind of situation, right?
For sure.
Like it's a lot of dudes from Chicago who, like this is the way that they express themselves artistically. So I'm now surrounded almost more than ever before by like people who really want to get into a deep conversation about the Cubs. And it's very easy for me right now to just be like, I'll see you in a little bit. Like you knock yourselves out with that conversation. I'm going to go over here.
Right.
And that doesn't feel like a failure to me anymore. It doesn't hurt.
You've grown. You've realized that you don't need to pretend to feel that.
And I think I also know that they know that that's not my thing and they don't care. And that's important too, Other people's perceptions are still not unimportant, but like, I don't know.
And where do you think the switch happened from pretending you can play basketball to saying, hey, I don't give a fuck about the Cubs? Where do you think that switch happened?
I think a lot of it actually came from getting a job at MTV. All of my pop culture obsessions felt female to me, or felt like, if not female, at least like something a little boy cares about rather than a man. Like I always felt a little strange knowing as much as I did about pop culture. That always made me feel a little frivolous, Once I got a job, like a high profile job, where I got to use all of those things that were giving me anxiety about myself, that helped. I think I would have gotten there eventually, but I got to a place where it was like the X-Men, like the thing that made me feel like an outcast suddenly became my superpower. And so that definitely made me feel easier about it. And looking back, I don't know what my relationship with all that shit would be if I hadn't gotten that job. I don't know if I'd still be some dickhead 49-year-old in basketball shorts.
Right. Because that job, it was almost like a validation of what I like is important to somebody. Exactly.
I wish, I wish that validation didn't have to come externally, but whatever, it came.
Hey, it came. And then can we talk more about, I feel like I'm going to talk to you with a little bit of like walking on eggshells of like how maybe a white person would talk to me about race because I'm not part of the LGBT community. So I'm just like, if I'm saying something stupid, please let me know.
I trust you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. No, because I always wonder about what it's like for a gay male person who doesn't outwardly look or act or sound like the stereotypical, oh, that guy is gay, and what that is like, and feeling like, because I didn't know you were gay for a very long time. I don't think I knew you were gay until I met Ben. Who's been
really?
I don't think so. I'm not really sure. I don't think I really thought about it. I'm not really the kind of person who's like, oh, I wonder if they're gay or not. But I don't think it was, I definitely know at MTV, I didn't know. And so I'm assuming that might be the case for a lot of people. And what your thoughts are on that. And if that's something you have to constantly think about, like, I have a friend who recently, she's bisexual and never really, quote unquote, came out about it until recently.
Right.
And one of the reasons why she did, she was like, I'm just so sick of trying to squeeze this into a normal conversation with people.
Right.
The fact that like I date men and women, or the fact that I date women, period. And so I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because her, like maybe you, people would see her and just assume she's straight. No one's going to think that, I don't know what a bi person, quote unquote, looks like, but she definitely doesn't look like what a quote unquote lesbian looks like.
Sure. Which I'm just going to tell you, you also don't know.
Exactly.
And you also don't know what a gay man looks like.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because I don't.
Right.
Because nobody does.
Right.
So it's a strange thing. I mean, the fact that I read as not gay is, I think, partially organic and partially my college years, like trying desperately not to be straight, but to seem straight, because that to me was, I view that as more valuable, which makes me want to punch a wall so bad. And also I think some of it was like, I was certainly in the gay world, probably elsewhere too. You dress a bit like what you want to attract. So I think I was acting a bit like what I wanted to attract. So some of it is affectations that stuck, that became personality traits, which I've had a lot of therapy. And like the idea that affectations over the course of my life became personality traits doesn't upset me the way that it did a few years ago, because I think that is universal. We're all partially organic and partially constructed.
For sure. Absolutely.
So that doesn't bug me as much. I used to think I was sort of counterfeit for a while, but now it's just, that's the way that it fucking is.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like, how can I put this? You are at all times seeing gay men and lesbians and bisexuals and trans people and not knowing it.
Yeah.
Because, we have our cultural ideals of what those things look like.
Exactly.
The ones who confirm that, you're like, okay, well, that is a queer person. And the ones who don't, whether you say it or not, you're just like, that is a non-queer person.
Right.
And so that you just don't know. And it does make it really difficult. And certainly, like, being someone who doesn't outwardly read as queer makes it like you do have to have some plumage. Guy Branum calls it plumage, where it's like you are kind of playing up your gayness a little bit in order to meet other gay people in the world,
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
And when you don't, it makes it that much more difficult. People can't find you and you can't find other people.
Right. And then I would imagine on the flip side, and I can relate to this in a different way and I can explain that. But on the flip side, have you ever been in a sticky situation where someone is saying something maybe derogatory about a gay person, not knowing that you are gay?
Oh, sure. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I'm stuck in it now when people do know I'm gay. Like I still hear stuff that I'm not wild about.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's someone, another person sort of in my orbit in St. Louis who came out later in life, who did kind of read as gay and got married and had a couple kids. And then, in his 40s came out and he's someone who, is in my family's kind of, like he's a family friend.
Mm-hmm.
And his name came up and someone that I'm close to went, hello, like did one of those.
Oh no.
And I couldn't even react to it until like 4 days later.
Of course.
Like when those kinds of comments happen, it is a it's gridlock in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're a little bit hurt. You then tell yourself, no, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I should say something. Then you're like, oh, we're having so much fun.
Right.
And then you're like, well, wait a minute, what am I perfect? Have I never said anything that was a little bit off color or a little whatever? And then all of these processes happen in your brain, and then the moment's passed and it's too late to say anything, and you have nothing to do but get an ulcer over it and remember it for 10 years.
I've totally been there. Yeah.
So there's still shit like that goes on that I'm still not great about stopping and saying like, don't do that. Making a fuss, but just saying like, just so you know, that's not cool. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also remember when I was at MTV, this is the best sentence you'll hear today.
Okay.
I went down to Orlando, Florida.
Oh boy.
To, I believe, like Islands of Adventure, whatever theme park it was down there, to host the press conference unveiling the Backstreet Boys Burger King Kids Club figurines.
Okay.
So the Backstreet Boys and I were unveiling they were like the Burger King Kids meal would come with you might get a Howie.
Backstreet Boy. Yeah. Okay.
You might get an AJ. If you're lucky, you'll get a Nick. And so, so I was hosting the press conference. And, this being a time when there was so much money in the recording industry and in fast food and just in everything, it was 3 luxurious days, right? And so the guy who was sort of in charge of walking me around for the few days, we went to a theme park, and the guy who checked, got our IDs and gave us our passes and whatever was kind of swishy, right? Was an obviously queer man. And my handler, once we got through the thing, was like, he didn't say the F word, but it was something about that guy was kind of light in the loafers or whatever. And I was like, I'm gay too, by the way, which I'm thrilled I was able to do. I think I was in such a surreal,
what did he say?
Nothing for a real long time. He had also, by the way, lined up a massage for me for later in the day. Which I think was supposed to be like a happy ending kind of a deal.
Oh my God.
And so that got changed real quick. He just got real uncomfortable and just kind of, it got a little weird.
Oh man, good for you. It's crazy being a, Afro Latina and darker skin, and I confuse everybody. And so I've had it on both sides. I've had Latin people say derogatory things to me in Spanish or around me, not realizing I understand them, talking about African American people. And then I've had Black people say derogatory things about Latin people in front of me, assuming that I'm just African American. So I've been there in a different way, and it's always interesting and always like, what the fuck, people? Come on.
Yeah, come on. And then it falls to you to like make the situation better.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you have to both self-soothe in a way, and you also take, I mean, maybe you don't, I definitely do, but I bet you do. Like you take everyone else's feelings into account also. And you're like, I don't want to make this a tense moment for everybody. So it's like, you assume every responsibility for all of it.
Oh yeah. No. You just ignore it and you feel like icky inside and you're just like, okay, I want this to be over. And it happens.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think I can be that way in general. Like even if someone says something derogatory, like queerness or LGBT, they make a slur, they do a thing or a hey, or
right.
And you're like, well, what do I do? What do I say? I don't know. But that's kind of, that's talking about what's going on in the world right now. That's kind of something I think we all need to work on because it's like the meme going around. It's like, it's not Black people who need to fix racism. It's white people who need to fix racism. And it's the same thing with LGBTQ stuff and every other kind of stuff. It's like, it's not the people who are being oppressed who need to fix anything.
Right. It's, a thing that I've been thinking a lot, and I'm trying to like figure out a way to say it in a tight, clean way. And I know you get this, but for decades we've been having this conversation about police and African American people. We've been talking about it forever, and unrest and riots have been happening for decades since we were small. And a thing that I hear that I have heard throughout from white people, mostly from straight white people, is something along the lines of the good ones should do something about it. You know what I mean? Like within the community, like the African American people who believe in order and justice,
who are quote unquote good.
Yeah, should speak up and take care of the quote unquote bad ones or the angry ones or whatever. When when terrorism happens, you hear often like prayerful Muslims should do something about the people who are violent.
Right.
I, as a queer person, have heard many times, I'm so glad you're not like those ones, at the parade.
Oh my God.
From people who've never been to a parade, but who have seen the 5 seconds of the leather guy on Fox News. And so they think they know everything about a pride parade. So like, there's this perception that like the good ones should do something about the bad ones, right? Should just do the work within their own community to like help the quote unquote bad ones see the light and do the work for their own community. Our like white people's worst one is the president of the United States. And I don't see conservatives doing anything about the bad ones in their midst.
Mm-mm.
I do not see conservative people doing their work to neutralize the bad shit that's going on in their name.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This is a tangent, but it's like, it drives me crazy that it's like for marginalized communities, there is this perception that there is some sort of organized community whereby like the enlightened ones can bring along the less enlightened ones, or that the more enlightened ones are going to be taken seriously by the world at large to begin with.
Going back to you're not male enough vibe. How are you feeling on that now? Like as Dave Holmes today in 2020, how are we feeling?
I feel really good. I feel really good today. I have anger and I have regret about time that I lost. And that I think is more the stuff that bothers me right now. The rest of it, I don't care. I'm feeling like I'm at a good place in my life. And I see the need to be very stereotypically female and the need to be very stereotypically male. I see that now as insecurity. I see that now as like, I see that as a manifestation of discomfort with oneself.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately is living your own life by your perception of someone else's rules, which is a recipe for sadness and panic. And I don't I see it now and it doesn't bother me. I see it as like, okay, I hope that person grows out of it rather than like, oh, I better step right in line behind them. So like, I feel very comfortable with myself right now, but I can't say that I'm not angry about having wasted years of my life worrying about this stuff. Even though I think, to the people in my life who are still playing by these rules, I think I can come off very strange, and I don't care because I think I'm planting seeds that will sprout later in life. I think it's good for young people in a very conservative part of the world, in a very conservative time, which it still is, to like see somebody saying like, I understand what the rules are. I just don't give a fuck anymore. And I'm going to live my life and play to the top of my abilities and intelligence and talents and whatever. I think that's the kind of thing that maybe later they'll say like, okay, I get it. And maybe there was something to that.
I love that because I was going to ask you, my next question was, to any little boy out there who feels maybe not male enough, or even any girl out there who feels not feminine enough, your advice to them or what you would say to them.
You know who I bet there is right now? I bet there's a 13-year-old gay boy who doesn't think he's gay enough.
Oh my God, yes.
Who's like watching YouTube videos and RuPaul's Drag Race and all that shit and just being like, I love boys, but this kind of thing doesn't really speak to me. So there must be something wrong with me. The world is always going to tell you you're not something enough, right? Like it's very easy to like create a club and rules around it and then exclude other people, and people are always going to feel a little bit excluded. So good. If you don't fit in, good. It's going to stink for a while, but like, don't chuck it all away and try to fit in. Just keep going with yourself and you will find a perfect place in the world.
Oh, what a great way to end it. I love that, Dave. That's such a unique thing and perspective that I never even thought of. Yeah, there are probably 13-year-old boys out there right now feeling not gay enough.
Oh, sure.
Because of what's out there now. It's so interesting.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, thank you. You're the fucking best.
You're the fucking best.
How can people find you? Because I know you have your own podcast.
I do. I have a podcast called Homophilia, in which we talk about a lot of this stuff. It's my friend Matt McConkey and me, and we talk to cool queer people, artists and writers and regular type folks about their lives and the pop culture that they grew up on and what they're obsessed with now and what their lives look like. These are conversations that getting back to the theme of this thing, I thought there was something dubious about talking too much about being gay. Like I felt like that was like, I've already come out and nobody's beaten me up. So that's enough. I shouldn't ask any more from the world. No, you know what? These are conversations that I find very helpful and nourishing, and I have them with my friends. So it makes sense that if my friends and I had those conversations, other people would benefit from them too.
Absolutely.
And if straight people don't want to listen, they don't have to. It's not for them.
Right. Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're in the world of podcasts now. We can reach our market. And if you're not in it,
yeah, I
don't really give a shit. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like if you'll enjoy it if you sit down and listen to it, but if you can't get yourself there, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
So that's fun. I have another show called Troubled Waters that is a sort of a game show podcast. And then everything that I do, I am not shy about plugging on my Twitter at Dave Holmes. That is unless I burn my Twitter account to the ground later on today.
That might happen. We might all burn Twitter down.
We might just have to in order to save ourselves.
Well, thank you. I love you. And this is well and wonderful.
Thank you, Gracie.
Thank you for listening to Not Blank Enough. Until next time, please take care of yourself and others, and know that you are more than enough. Check the show notes for links and info about today's guest. Please subscribe to Not Blank Enough wherever you get your podcast, and follow us on Instagram at NotBlankEnoughPod. This episode was produced during the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 and recorded remotely. Our show today was produced by Gracie Mercedes and Dave Hill and edited by Douglas Sarine and Colleen Beasley. Not Blank Enough is a Gumption Pictures production.